In episode number 222, the final episode of 2016, we cover what's coming for DC Comics in March 2017.
We also have our review on a new comic, Red Sonja number 0.
And yet another review coming your way at the very end of the show is Rogue One.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Kelly.
For any new listeners, the way we format the show is first we cover some news ranging again from comics all the way to more, and then we follow up with a comic book highlight of the week, which is the Red Sonja number 0 this episode. But at the very end, we're going to have that Rogue One review so that if you don't want the movie spoiled, you haven't seen it, haven't gotten a chance, are waiting for the crowds to go away, we will have that at the very end of the episode for you so you can skip out on that.
Before we start with the show, though, Daniel, how has your week been?
We're in the middle of the holiday season, so it's been hectic, but not as hectic as previous years when I did work at GameStop and a comic book shop. So it is the calmest Christmas rush season in retail I've ever worked.
That's wonderful. For brokeheads who don't know, Daniel and I have not seen each other all week. Right now, we're on opposite shifts. Again, with the holiday season, he works retail, I work foods. So I have been opening. I start my days at 6:30 in the morning. And I am well asleep before he gets home. And he's, of course, asleep when I leave.
Yep.
So my week 2 has been very busy getting those last minute holiday presents for family. My parents are the worst people to shop for. I hate shopping for parents because they never want to tell you what they want because they don't want you to spend your money.
Right.
And then my dad especially, the things he wants are like way more money than I have. And then he just goes buys them when he wants them. I'm like, damn it, Dad. Like,
I feel like that's a common adult problem because we all just buy what we want whenever we have the money for it.
And that's what I ran into with us this holiday season too. I started looking at it because my parents were like, Kelly, what do you want for Christmas? I'm like, oh man, I don't even know. Like, I wanted shoes, I bought them. I wanted that, I bought it. Like, can you pay some bills? That would help.
I do especially like the holiday season for the fact that this is the time of year where we can move the products that haven't sold all year.
Yep.
So this is where I'm like, oh, you want that? Oh, yes, absolutely. Here, let's get you wrapped up on that statue. Of course, it's a great statue. And whereas these are things that you normally would sit on for the rest of the year, but now with the holidays, you have more eyes on the floor, more eyes on your products. So the chances of them buying stuff that normally wouldn't sell is now much higher. So that's where I'm happy because going into the year, you want to make some space for the new products coming in 2017.
Well, you also have those people like me who are now rushing around to find gifts and be like, oh, they like Iron Man. Yeah, just give me that $80 statue. Yeah, they like him. Fine. They'll enjoy it. It's like they probably won't, but okay. But like you mentioned in the beginning, this is our last podcast of 2016. This will actually be releasing on Christmas Day.
Christmas Day.
So we hope everyone's having a great holiday season, whatever you celebrate. Hope you're enjoying. I will be working as this comes out.
And for those that do celebrate Christmas, this is a great Christmas for you because you have an episode coming out on Christmas Day.
Here's your present. You're welcome.
And if you're a Patreon backer, Christmas came early for you.
Aha!
So you are super enjoying Christmas right now.
I see what you did there.
So huge thanks, and we're going to reflect a little bit on 2016. But let's jump into the DC Comics news for this week.
So we did get our DC Comics March 2017 highlights. We're going to cover just a few of them, and for a full list, you can check out newsarama.com.
So this is the bigger takeaway from what we read on the solicitations. The big one being that the reveal of who Mr. Oz is will begin to unfold in Superman number 18.
All the way out in March, guys. Remember, this is for March. So we still got to wait a little while, but something to look forward to. Also, in Action Comics number 975, it will feature a backup story by Paul Dini.
All of this Paul Dini we've been getting recently is just greatness for me personally, because we've gotten Paul Dini on the DC Holiday Special, we got Paul Dini on the Batman Annual, now he's doing backup stories for Action Comics. it's only a matter of time before we get him back on a Batman book
Hopefully,
ongoing.
yeah.
He last did that in Detective Comics before the New 52 and also in Gotham City Sirens, which we talked about last week, is now being adapted probably loosely into a feature film. So any more Paul Dini we can get means, one, his contract is a little bit more free so he can do more DC work.
Right.
Less television work for him, great. Maybe this will mean more original graphic novels for him as well. And anytime he can get behind Harley Quinn is just all of us fans win.
Do you want to rephrase that?
I know he would be happy to get behind Harley Quinn too.
Either way, yes. Always love to see Paul Dini. If you guys haven't checked out his work, definitely do. Mad Love, he wrote that one. Yes, my favorite Harley Quinn story. You can find that on trade paperback now, so definitely check it out.
Trade and hardcover with the deluxe edition.
Yes.
And real quick on Mr. Oz, it could connect to the Watchmen. Dan DiDio and Jim Lee have already said that we're going to start getting that Watchmen stuff next
Finally.
summer. So that's probably where it's going to kick off. And I mean, the obvious thing is that it's Ozymandias, but now I'm starting to think it's probably not just going to be Ozymandias. No, it's a little too obvious.
That'd be way too obvious. Have you not read a DC book? Way too obvious. So along with these highlights, we do have 2 statues to mention as well. We have the Killing Joke statue by Brian Boland, first seen at San Diego Comic-Con, and it now has a release date of July 2017.
This beauty is over 13 inches tall. It's limited to 5,000 pieces, and it's going to be $150.
Ooh, that's a chunk of a paycheck right there.
Not as bad, though, considering that it's 13 inches.
Right.
And then I saw the pictures from San Diego Comic-Con. It looks gorgeous. It's very detailed. To anyone that hasn't seen it, it is that classic image of Joker on the cover holding that camera. But now you get the full body image of what the Joker's doing on that. So they got a little creative in giving him a really cool base, and then the rest of his suit that you can actually look at in 3 dimensions.
It would definitely be a wonderful addition to any collection, especially if you're a Joker fan or a huge fan of the Killing Joke.
And more Harley Quinn stuff. We've got the Harley Quinn red, white, and black statue as designed by Terry Dodson.
This comes straight out of the cover of Harley Quinn #1. It comes in 7 inches. Again, limited edition to 5,000, and the price point is $80.
What do you think of that one? You being a Harley Quinn fan, it's a classic Harley.
Right.
It's straight out of that fucking cover from the early 2000s.
Right. So it's not the Harley Quinn run that we have right now.
Right.
But her first solo run back then. I thought it was great. You know, when you told me it was right out of the cover, I was expecting the newer one. But to see that it's the old one, like, I just got excited again. I'm like, yes, classic Harley right there. That's my Harley Quinn. The pose is great. It's a little weird with that stick sticking straight up to hold her up. Because in the cover, she's jumping. So they have her... in the statue, she's up off the ground with, like, a stick holding her up. And I'm kind of concerned with how well that would hold up the statue. Overall, I mean, it looks great.
Yeah, that was my main thing about it. And that might be a deal breaker for us. Is maybe if they got it closer to the base of the statue with a shorter stick, I think it could have been a cooler piece.
What I probably would have done instead is raise the price, but put some of the... roller coaster tracks behind her, because that's what's on that cover, and find a way to incorporate her being held up with that around.
I think the main issue is that it's part of the red, white, and black series, which have all featured just Harley Quinn.
Gotcha.
So they're probably trying to go for something closer to that. But even commissioning Terry Dodson to do a brand new original piece, I think could have been the way to go. And I understand that it's an iconic cover at this point because it is Harley Quinn. People are looking for that #1 issue. And Terry has even redone it recently with the new, I guess, yeah, it would be the new 52 version of Harley Quinn, where he and Rachel have gone back, redid it completely, and it's the new design. And that was for the Harley Quinn #1. It was one of the exclusive variants. But aside from that, yeah, an original piece made specifically for the statue probably would have been better. But that being said, it's Harley Quinn. It's going to sell no matter what.
It's great. I love, we were reminiscing earlier today about years ago when we were just trying to collect all these comics, and Harley was one of my favorites. And, you know, we didn't even know what we were getting into. Didn't even know, like, what this would become someday. And I just think that's amazing. I love her character, and I'm glad that she's blown up as much as she has.
Yeah, it's an opinion not often shared with a lot of the Harley Quinn fans, because a lot of them like to be those gatekeepers of, I liked her before we got Suicide Squad. And I think for both of our ends, it's great to be like, yeah, more Harley Quinn merchandise for us to enjoy. You know, enjoy it while we're on this Harley Quinn high.
Yeah, well, I can see where people want to feel protective of that character because they liked it first, but for me to see so many other people getting excited for it and to see what she's become, because in the very first episode we saw her, she was just a gopher for the Joker. Like, she wasn't really anything, and now she's her own person, you know, in some ways. And while I'm a very big believer that she needs the Joker at some point in her life to really be Harley, to, you know, really function, she's able to go off on her own for little bits and do her own thing and be her own person, and just getting to watch her grow. I guess you could say, I don't know, I'm happy that, you know, so many people like her, because now it's just not me saying, yeah, Harley is a really cool character, you should check her out. It's, yeah, I know, isn't she great? Did you know that, like, back in the beginning, like, this is what she was? That's cool for me.
I think the comic that has handled her the best so far is actually the Batman TMNT Adventures miniseries.
Yeah.
Because she's next to Joker the whole time, and both the dialogue for both characters are just spot on. It's something that I could definitely hear Mark Hamill reading out on the animated series, or Arlene Sorkin as Harley Quinn. So that's, if you're a fan of Harley and you're not feeling the New 52 version of Harley Quinn, do yourself a favor and go to Batman TMNT Adventures. That's published by IDW and DC Comics. Only on the second issue right now. But that is the definitive Harley Quinn and Joker. Sure, it's not written by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, but it is right there with what the characters would say and do.
So that was it for our DC highlights. Again, like we said, you're welcome to go to newsarama.com and read the full list. But moving forward, we do have some news about Young Justice 3.
So Greg Weisman, who's the co-creator of Cartoon Network's Young Justice, has urged fans and DC Comics to call for another volume of the tie-in comic book for the third season of the show.
Do you think he should just be happy with what he got?
Yes. Greg, knock it off. Enjoy your season 3. Focus on that.
Yes. But we do have a quote here. Quote, Brandon, Vetti, and I are hard at work on season 3 of Young Justice television series. But A, we just got started, and B, making animated episodes takes a long time. 10 months minimum. Minimum. He wanted to point that out again. So if you want more new Young Justice stories sooner, the answer is pretty simple. End quote. I'll tell you what that answer is. Are you ready for that answer?
I'm ready.
Fan fiction. Just go read fan fiction.
Anyone can write it.
It's free, right? You gotta find a good one. It's kind of hit and miss, but it's free.
You gotta do a little work if it's free.
Yeah, and then you can go on DeviantArt. People have comics. Just go read it there.
Some have artwork that go with certain fan fiction stories.
Yeah, it's great. That's how I found Pet Project, my favorite Snormini story. That's how I found some great Avatar: The Last Airbender fan fiction. It's wonderful.
So Greg continued by urging fans to buy the previous Young Justice issues on digital platforms since his trade paperbacks are already out of print.
Just be happy with what he got.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. Like he's pushing it a little bit. Those Young Justice comic books, they didn't exactly fly off the shelves. Do you think now with the following that Young Justice does have, they'd do better if they did a season 3 comic book?
Probably, maybe. The thing that would concern me too, though, is I don't want anything to be given away from season 3. Like, I'm excited for what's happening to see where it goes. And if you're going to make me purchase a comic book to be able to understand the TV show, that's what I'm afraid that we'd get to. Or I'm afraid we get into the problem with like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where yes, I absolutely love the series. I wanted more, but then I read the comic and I was like, I'm going to go read my fan fiction.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see another Young Justice story or another trade paperback.
At least not until season 3 comes out and blows up.
Assuming it even blows up and people haven't moved on. Who knows?
I haven't moved on. I'm still waiting. People haven't moved on from Kingdom Hearts 3. We're all still waiting for that too, 10 years later.
Yeah, they're used to waiting at this point.
It's just become a part of our lives. But I still see people all the time getting brand new Keyblade tattoos, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I want another tattoo. If I could, I'd have like just tattoos everywhere. Would that be weird?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's becoming way more common.
Yeah.
More places are allowing you to have full sleeve tattoos. As long as, they're not, fucking giant like vagina or something on your forearm or something.
Giant penis. That's my next tattoo right there, guys. Woman power. Giant vagina on my arm.
So now we have some news on the Fox side, and that's from director James Mangold.
So, according to him, Hugh Jackman took a salary cut for 2017's Logan to be released as a rated R feature.
So I thought that was funny because the success of Deadpool alone might not have been enough for them to say, yeah, you can go ahead and release this worldwide as a rated R feature, or why don't you film it rated R and then we'll do a PG-13 cut and do the extended unrated cut on Blu-ray and DVD. So instead, it looks like Hugh Jackman did, as I mentioned here, took an initial salary cut, but there's no way it's not worked into his contract that he gets a certain percentage of the movies or the Blu-rays, or if ticket prices hit a certain point, that he then generates revenue.
By this point, absolutely. You don't think, like, all the middle-aged women in America are going to see X-Men just for Hugh Jackman? Let's be realistic, guys. If you got anybody else to play Logan, it would not be what it is.
You mean they're not going for Caliban?
Nope. Who's that?
Ricky Gervais's friend.
Who? Oh, the bald guy.
Yes.
No, I'm not going for him. I am only going for Hugh Jackman.
Stephen Merchant is the actor's name.
No, Hugh Jackman. That's all that they go to see it for.
So since 2000's X-Men, Jackman and his agent have negotiated a series of one-picture deals with 20th Century Fox, which shocked me, because I thought he was under contract for multiple years, especially how much he loves the character of Wolverine.
Okay, he loves the character, but how much strain does that man put on his body?
Fucking so much.
Eating like one piece of chicken and no water. What is that?
Boiled chicken and rice. And then when he's getting ready to film, he dehydrates himself so that his muscles are more noticeable underneath there.
They're noticeable.
Something else he does is before each take, if he's going to do a shirtless scene, he will do a bunch of push-ups to get blood pumping and to get them to look bigger on screen. And then, obviously they get smaller. And
it works. Middle-aged women across America. That's why we're going to the movies.
So Logan is set to release on March 3rd, 2017.
So Logan is one of the Marvel movies that we will go see.
Mm-hmm.
There's very few that we really enjoy. However, Captain America Civil War was one of them. I enjoyed it.
I liked it too. All three Cap movies.
So several months after Captain America Civil War, original Civil War comic book writer, that was a lot of words, man, Mark Millar, has shared his review of the film.
This will be interesting to hear because they changed the movie from what he wrote. So here's what Mark Millar says, quote, Civil War had a good opening 20 minutes, but then I honestly can't remember what the movie was about, wrote Millar on his website. It's interesting, the Russos have a background in comedy because it's really missing in these otherwise well-made pictures and very, very missed. I really hope this bleakness doesn't extend into their two Avengers pictures, because what made that first Avengers work was the light as well as shade, and I'll be sad if that's all lost like it was in this picture, end quote.
It wasn't what I wrote, so it wasn't that great.
That's totally what he said. And it's because those first 20 minutes also
were what he wrote.
Very similar to it, yeah. People get hurt. Because of superheroes and supervillains, and that's kind of how Civil War 3 opened. But the rest of it, I mean, you can't do the X-Men, you can't do the Fantastic Four in Civil War. You couldn't have Iron Suit Spidey in it. He's got to sort of understand that too. I mean, what else did he want out of Civil War?
I wanted what I wrote, and it wasn't, so I didn't like it. I don't even remember it. I don't remember any of the movie.
He's the comic fan that complains when it's not exactly like the comic, and when it is, they point out the differences, and that, for them, ruins the whole picture. I mean, look at Watchmen. Straight out of the book, almost, panel for panel. But because it's not a giant squid alien monster, well, fuck this movie. Fuck it all. 99% was exactly like the book. No.
You know what would have changed his viewpoint? If he had gotten some percentage out of that movie.
Oh, immediately. Well, maybe he did.
He would have pulled a Paul Dini. Oh, yep, it's great. Love it.
Love all the Harleys. They're all great.
Love what they're doing. They're all fantastic.
So in spite of this, Captain America Civil War raked in over $1 billion at the international box office. I believe it was the biggest film in 2016.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I mean, we liked it. I saw it once.
It's on Netflix this month.
Awesome. Oh, that's right, because they have all the Disney Marvel.
So on to the DC side, and our last bit of news, since this is a lighter week leading up to the holidays, a lot of outlets are shutting down earlier, so we don't get as much down the pipeline. But Variety is reporting that Ben Affleck's solo Batman movie is set to start filming in spring 2017.
We do have a quote here. Quote, I respect all of those movies. Christopher Nolan did an incredible job. Christian Bale did an incredible job. Tim Burton did an incredible job. This is coming from Affleck. At a certain point, you have to look forward and try to believe in your own vision for it and not be looking over your shoulder the whole time. I go into that movie with a tremendous amount of respect for the people who came before me." End quote.
So no release date has been given for The Batman, but reports indicate that it'll take Justice League 2's spot in 2019. So if it films in spring, it puts it right on track for a late 2018 or early 2019 release.
I could see that. Yes, it's probably definitely going to take Justice League 2's spot. I do like the fact that he mentioned those were still great movies, because people are going to complain, "Oh, it wasn't this movie. You should have been more like this movie." And he's acknowledging right now, like, those were all great, but this is my vision. This is where we're going.
I thought it was smart for him to relate to the other directors to point him out, because he will be directing The Batman, and it seems like he's also writing it. That was the news earlier this year, is that he was writing it with Jeff Johns. So this is more of his personal project than what he did in Batman v Superman, what he's going to do in Justice League Parts 1 and eventually Part 2. So I get the sense that there's more writing on it for him personally than to just appear in a movie and collect a paycheck.
There definitely is, because if he could do this and knock it out of the park and get everybody to really, really like it, he solidifies himself as the character of Batman, as a director, as a writer for superhero movies. And as we've all seen, superhero movies are now the action movies of today. He's got a career for a long time.
Hopefully.
If he can do great with this one.
Keep him going. Keep on going with the superhero movies. And to some of the people that are saying that some of these companies, DC in particular, are rushing things too much with having Justice League already, or having, for example, the Gotham City Sirens, you got to strike while the iron is fucking hot, because these movies can get unpopular next year. Maybe no one goes out to see any of these in 2017, or there's a drop-off.
I'll go to see them in 2017.
And with a lot of these bigger companies, as soon as they see a drop-off in revenue and they're not breaking records, even if they're making money, they will start cutting plans. They will start cutting sequels. They will start not investing in brand new franchises. Something like Suicide Squad, you would not see if superhero movies were as popular as they are now. If they were even a quarter less popular, you could not see WB greenlighting a project like that. So yes, make the Justice League while you can. Make another Guardians movie while you can. All of that, just strike while the iron's hot, while people want to see these. And I have yet to hear someone say, there's too many superhero movies. They're making too many. No one is saying that yet.
Right.
People are still enjoying them. They're still breaking records. As I mentioned, Civil War was huge in 2016. So let's keep them coming. But with that, listeners, we will jump into our Patreon shout-out of the week. As I mentioned, that was it for our news. And the last Patreon shout-outs for the year as well. These are going out to Eric and Brian.
Follow them on Twitter, guys. Eric is at eAntonOfficial, and Brian is at BrianSchaup1. Follow them on Twitter. All of you, follow each other. And thank you guys so much for your support.
If you want your shout out every single month, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke. We are well on our way to goal number 3, which would give us a full website redesign, and it would also make the new t-shirt designs available as I get them complete every 3 months or so.
Your new t-shirt design is awesome.
That one I haven't shared yet.
But it's so cool.
And I've got another one that I think I know which one you're talking about, with the multicolors where there's actually 3 ink colors on it.
No.
There's like the neon pink, the green. I'd shown you that one.
No, you haven't.
I did. I definitely showed it
was
to you.
I
You
asleep?
just can't remember. No, it wasn't
Was I
night.
falling? Okay, then I was asleep. Anytime after 9 p.m., I'm asleep, whether my eyes are open or not.
We also need more iTunes reviews.
Yes.
We did not hit our goal for the end of the year that we set. We gave them 4 weeks to leave us 20-something reviews.
Okay, that's plenty of time. That's only 5 reviews a week. Come on, guys. What are we at now? Did we get to 30 at least?
We're at 23.
Oh.
23 iTunes reviews.
Okay, so if we get to 30 before the end of the year, which gives them a week to get us 7 reviews, that's 1 review a day, then I will still send out comics to everybody.
Tell your friends, borrow their iPhones, leave us a review, go to the podcast
Steal
app.
their iPhones, push them over.
Look up The Reasons I'm Broke. Head on over to the podcast. Even if on Stitcher you want to leave us a review there, fine. But it's easier to leave us a review on iTunes because it's just one click. You don't have to sign up for any kind of email, anything. And, give them their phone back. Or I don't know. I don't care. Just as long
keep
as
it.
you give
Whatever.
us the reviews.
Just make up fake iTunes account. Everybody has like 5 email addresses now. Just make up stuff.
And huge thanks also to fandomfi.com for the help at the $5 decal tier.
If you guys are listening and you want to be Patreon supporters as well, all it does is help us make the show better, help give you more things from us. You can head over to patreon.com/thereasonsimebroke for as little as $1 a month, which is 25 cents an episode. You too can get your shout out.
On to our comic book highlight. We like to pick out books that are either jumping on points or essential stories to what we're seeing in the universes. And we do have a number 0 this time, the beginning of an issue, a new ongoing. And that is Red Sonja number 0.
This is written by Amy Chu with art by Carlos Gomez, and the colorist is Mohan.
Is that a colorist name?
That's a colorist name. Mohan.
Definitely his real name.
My name is Mohan, and I'm a colorer.
We have yet to figure out the mystery behind colorists being celebrities in their minds in the comic book world.
I'm going to change my name. I just want just one word name.
Wouldn't it be, for you, it'd be Kelli. It'd be Kel-Li.
Yeah.
Just to take
Kelli.
after hi-fi.
Oh, no, I could just do a K, an L, and an E.
Kelli.
And then I'd still be Kelli.
All right, is the L capitalized and the rest little, is just to make it even different? Or the KL and then the E is capitalized?
Yeah, that's how you spell it. Like a little K, a little L, and then a big E.
The weirder your name, the better the colorist you are.
Yeah.
And look at that. The colors are pretty good.
The colors are pretty nice.
Good job, Mohan. All right, so let's talk about the spin on this new Red Sonja.
So, Red Sonja's, going around fighting this evil wizard, and then she's in the future!
Yes, the present. That's the big, I guess, twist, is we haven't, at least to my knowledge, we started reading Red Sonja with Gail Simone's run. We have yet to see Red Sonja in the present day. This is a big risk for Red Sonja. Yep. This is a 25-cent issue first, so for you to try something for a quarter is not bad at all. A full book, and Dynamite's really trying on this one. Amy Chu previously wrote Poison Ivy's miniseries, which we did enjoy, but this can get really bad really quick. Or it can stay kind of like Rocket Girl, where she also got transported to the past. She got transported to the 80s, and that was a lot of fun for readers. But I don't know, this could very easily be something to kill a series.
I will say that I have a complaint about this book already.
Okay.
It's the art.
By Mr. Carlos Gomez?
Yes. You see her ass everywhere. Everywhere. Even if she's jumping way far in the background. Whoop, there's her ass hanging out.
Yeah, Gail Simone's run didn't really do a lot of that.
No, and that's what I appreciated, because yes, Sonja as herself is a very sexualized character. Of course, she's running around in a chainmail bikini, but they took the time to respect her, even though she wore that. She didn't, she wasn't ever really popping out of it, I guess you could say. They still kept her very covered. I didn't feel like she was overly sexualized in that book. That's just what she wore. Cool. In this, every time she jumps, the back of it flies way up. If she's just standing there, you see, everything sticking out, and I'm just like, oh, man.
Do you think there's a chance that it's to play into the future of, you can't be wearing that? Are we going to get that joke? Don't you think they'll cover her up in the modern day?
Probably. Yes, they will cover her up in modern day, but I would be very surprised if that does play into that, because you can not have that happen and still play into that. Regardless of if her ass is flying out all the time, you could have one scene where it happens in the future and then people are, whoa, oh my. It doesn't need to happen every 5 seconds in this book while she's fighting a giant dragon.
As far as the first issue, there's a little to complain about because it is a quarter. But when we get to the $3.99 price point, I will probably be criticizing it harder on issue number 1. Because as far as this, the plot that you gave us is all that happens in this.
Right.
She's fighting a wizard, she's fighting a giant creature, and then due to the wizard's magic, she gets teleported into the present time. Now, I don't know if that's just going to be for the first arc, and if it is, great, get back to her regular time, and I'll have more monster fighting, drinking, and everything else that is Red Sonja. But if this book is just going to take place in the present, we can have some serious issues on the character in the series. So I think we're going to be able to see more of that once we get finished with the first arc. If it's awful, yeah, we'll drop it even before that, kind of like we did with Skyborn. But I'm trying to remain optimistic on this one, and I'm trying not to let Gail Simone's run interfere with my enjoyment of this.
Oh, I let it interfere. It's interfering all over the place.
That was a good fucking run.
It was great. And again, going back to how they handle the character is, yes, again, overly sexualized woman, but Gail didn't treat her that way. She was just a strong woman going out, doing what she wanted, like kicking ass, taking names, but she didn't really have to use her sexuality to do any of that, to keep us interested. I feel like they're showing us her butt to keep us interested. I'm not interested in her ass. I just want to see her killing shit.
Someone asked this on Tumblr, which she didn't really respond to, but they said if Gail Simone, her run of Red Sonja, had been written by, say, a Greg Simone, would people have criticized it harder in saying that this was maybe a character that was treated as like a drunkard, someone that just wanted to have sex, someone that was not very intelligent, because Gail Simone's Red Sonja wasn't exactly the smartest. She was she was good at strategizing. She was smart in other ways, in on the field. Street
smart as opposed to book smart.
Exactly. So do you think that would have changed people's opinions? Is there a bias there, or do you think you could have read that story if it weren't written by someone like Gail Simone?
That would be a tough one, because Gail had her sleep with a lot of women too. I don't know. I'm glad Gail wrote it, because I don't really think there's anybody who could have captured what Gail did. If it were written by a man, yes, there were probably some things that he couldn't have done, like have her sleep with women, because then we would have been like, oh, it's just, but having her be a drunk and fight things, yeah, I think all that was fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely a bias both ways. If it wasn't written by Gail, or if it is, and it was, so we're more biased to it, because one, we gave Red Sonja a shot, and we hadn't read any of those characters' books, except for some of the Marvel Conan issues here and there, but aside from that, we would not have even given it a chance. And we did, because we tend to follow creators where they go, and Gail Simone is one of them. We met her at MegaCon. She was awesome. She was great. She loved your Strix cosplay.
Yeah.
That was 2-3 years now.
Oh, that was like 4 or 5 years. That was a long time ago.
So we tend to follow the creators that we had a positive experience with at conventions, or that we enjoyed, say, her Batgirl run. So we went on and read Sonja. And then on the opposite end, yes, you give more leeway to a character if they're written by a particular author, if they're of a particular sex. So yeah, I completely agree with you. Probably wouldn't have gone down as well as it did. But we still recommend it, regardless.
So guys, that does do it for our main part of the show this week. Like we said, we do have a spoiler-filled Rogue One review.
Yep.
At the end of the show, I was not able to participate in this review because I was working while you were seeing the movie, and have not had a chance to see it for myself. But we do have some guest stars that are going to tell you all about the movie and their thoughts.
Yeah, I'll be joined by Chris and Richard, who know way more about Star Wars than I do. So I felt that those were the right guys to have on the podcast.
Are you guys going to talk about metachlorians?
Those are mentioned a little bit. And Richard and I agreed on Rogue One for the most part. And then Chris had his issues with it, although I think he liked it more than Richard and I did. But still, the opinions are more or less the same. And you'll find out in a few minutes. But we do want to also wrap up 2016. And thank you all so much for hitting goal number 2 on Patreon for the constant rise in downloads throughout the year. Because if I compare the numbers this December 2016 or October 2016, even our lowest month this year, and flip them over to last year's, it's still nearly double what we had last year. So this is a growing show. This is a growing podcast. And Brocats are joining us all the time, which we really appreciate. We love the interactions on Twitter. We love the interactions on Facebook. And simply being able to share our opinions, our thoughts with all of you is a lot of fun. There's a lot of work that goes on the background of the show. So just having all those tweets, just continue to read through the comments, the interactions, all the people we've met because of the podcast keeps us going. It's the fuel that keeps the Reasons I'm Broke podcast around year after year.
And beyond just listening to us and supporting us, guys, we thank you for being there when we've had maybe weeks that we had to skip or had to push back. We find time every week, or we try to find time every week to do this podcast, but there is still so much that goes on in our lives. And 2016 has been a crazy year. It's been a great year, but it's been crazy. So thank you for sticking through those times as well, where we've had to get on there and be like, oh, Daniel's sick again. He caught the death flu. But sticking around for those times and being understanding when we can't always put it out as often as we'd like to. But just reflecting back on 2016, Daniel, do you have a particularly amazing moment that you'd like to touch on and share of, yes, this is what made my 2016?
Yeah, I think having new voices on the show, we've had guests before, but having that ability of recording through Skype with Tim Yates, we've had him on a few times, and then other people that we've had in the same room, and having that same quality, having the ability to use stuff like Alphonic so that it can sound more or less leveled out based on everyone's speaking level is really helpful. So I think that was a statistical growth for the show. We always want to have some new feature or have something new for the listeners out there. So I think that was probably the biggest thing, is just the sheer number of guests we had in 2016. MegaCon was another one where we had the Blue Juice Comics crew, and we were able to record at the convention. And that's, again, thanks to goal number 2, and also for the connections that we have made throughout the years. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me is having all the different opinions and voices that we have been able to add to this roster on the podcast. What about you?
Mine's not podcast related. I do very much appreciate the podcast, and particularly all the time that you put into it, because you definitely, man, there's nights where I'm like, I'm going to bed, and he's like, well, I got podcast stuff to do, and you stay up for a lot of hours working on it, which I'm very appreciative for. But for me, 2016 has felt like a new chapter in our lives. Like you said, we've reached goals with the podcast, which have helped made that better and easier. We started doing unboxings, working on getting those to the best quality that they can be, but definitely better than the ones that we were doing originally. I think we were recording on your cell phone or something.
Cell phone cameras are good too.
Okay, but listen, they've gotten better. Okay, so a turning point there. But even with our lives, with new goals with jobs and living situations, and it's been a really, really good year for us, despite everything else going on around us. It's been a wonderful year, and getting to interact with more of our brokettes and really becoming friends with the people who listen to our show has been great. And I think 2017 will bring new adventures and new challenges.
Yes.
And
yes, it will.
And I am very excited to face those with you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you too. I agree. Our personal lives have changed so much in the last 12 months as well, as you mentioned. The living situation, little Ace, little doggy. That's another little life, to take care of and watch over.
We've had her for more than a year, but
oh, that's true. Yeah, but now, now she's. I like to think of her as like an adult dog at this point.
Yeah, she takes care of herself and goes and babysits the puppy next door. And
so there's a lot of that. Yeah, I agree. It's career growth as well has been at the comic shop, more responsibilities, which in turn helps me in my own personal growth as someone who works in retail, who has worked in retail for most of his life. And I just hope to continually forever learn and grow and never stop that in all the things I do with the podcast, with work, with you. It just has to be a continual change. And even if it's an inner complexity with me, that I want that to continue. Like the brain has to keep flowing. And in my opinion, if there's a stagnant moment, that's when I freak out. There has to be some change. And so far, 2016 has been nothing but stimulating for me. At work, outside of work, it's always been constant, again, growth. I can't use that enough. I just have to keep learning and growing. So all of that makes it, I have to have a creative outlet, and the podcast is a huge one for me. I used to draw, I used to sketch, I used to DJ, and I've always had to have a creative outlet. But out of all the things, the podcast has been that satisfying creative outlet every single week where, I don't have time to DJ as often anymore or to sketch or draw or make artwork, but instead I'm putting that energy into the show, into these listeners that are listening right now, and into hopefully something that they're enjoying or that they're learning, or that they at least take something out of our weekly little meetup here.
I agree. And, I have grown to love the podcast. There were growing pains in the beginning, but I do really enjoy doing this with you. And, it's something weird couples do together. I don't know. But it's our time every week that we get to sit down and, really enjoy our mutual hobby together. So I enjoy it a lot, and we will continue to do it as long as we can, despite any situations we may face, as long as we're able to.
And you're on Twitter now this year,
yes,
right? That
I
was
did.
A big one.
I joined the Twitter. I am a Palpa Kelli.
42 followers, 43.
42. Let's shoot for like 50 next year.
This time next year, 50?
If I actually used the Twitter, I would probably get followers. I don't have time. I'm busy working and reading love stories on my phone, okay?
Well, that's a New Year's resolution there, maybe.
Read more love stories?
A tweet or something. At least you do help me with the hashtag games.
Oh, man, I'm so good at those. Those are so much fun.
Do more of those next year.
Okay. I definitely want to do that.
So there you go, listeners. Huge thank you again for 2016. If you joined us this year, thank you for sticking with us this far. If you've been there since 2012, that's even better. Also, huge thank you.
Why'd you stick around?
for tuning in every week, and for if you're a supporter on Patreon, that's a huge help as well. You've seen us reach goal number 2. Hopefully next year we will have met goal number 3, and we can have an even better site for all of you and all the listeners, and for the future Brokettes that are out there. Even if you've told a friend, like, hey, I think there's this podcast you might enjoy, that all of that helps. All of it collectively helps the show grow. So to all of you, thanks. Without all the Brokettes, any of the Brokettes, we would not be doing the show every single week. But with that, we do want to say goodbye to Kelli.
Bye. I don't get to do stats with you. I want to talk about the stats.
Which stats? The Rogue One stats?
Yeah.
I go over those in the review.
Oh. All right. Goodbye. Goodbye for 2016. See you all next year.
2017's episode debuts on New Year's Day.
Yes. What could be more perfect?
It worked out really well this year. Or even earlier for the Patreon backers. So they'll get it even earlier. They'll get 2017's. They're like time traveling themselves. They're like little red Sonjas themselves.
Are they wearing chainmail bikinis too?
Hopefully. Whatever makes them happy. Whatever makes them happy. So here's the spoiler-filled Rogue One review featuring Richard and Christopher along with myself. I do want to say real quick, excuse any audio differences that you would hear, because right now we're in a closet where it is insulated.
we're in our studio. Thank you.
In our studio.
It
is
closet.
Our studio closet.
Yeah. We got clothes on both sides. Nice rug.
Much more insulated than the back of a comic shop. So if you want to hear what the background workings of a comic book shop are, you're about to hear that. You're going to hear an electrical box. You're going to hear doors opening and closing, some footsteps, audio differences.
Yeah, that's it.
But it would sound much worse without a phonics. So that's this is why we can have these interviews.
Right.
All thanks to all of you. So we hope you enjoyed the review. Let us know what you think. If you are going to stick around for that, thank you so much. Enjoy. Otherwise, we'll see you next year. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Kelli.
Here is Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Do 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 do.
They are requesting a call sign.
It's Rogue One.
The power that we are dealing with here is immeasurable.
And this is the Rogue One review. For any of you that stuck around for it, remember, spoilers. Once again, you have been warned. I'm warning you again. There will be spoilers on Star Wars Rogue One. With me, I've got the two guys that more or less agreed on what I felt after watching Rogue One. But it's also one of the two guys that I know, too, that knows a lot about Star Wars, at least from my circle of friends. Everyone else is just on the internet. They're the ones correcting all of the directors and actors, and I don't really want to associate with those kind of fans. But I do have Richard here.
Hey, how's it going?
And Chris.
Hello.
So briefly, before we go into the review itself, what is your knowledge base for each of you on Star Wars? When did you first get exposed to it? And how deep do you go? Do you read the novels? Do you play all the games? So if we want to start with Richard.
Sure, yeah. So I have been, I've been a huge fan my whole life, basically. I don't ever remember a time when I didn't know that Vader was Luke's father, kind of thing. I mean, I have two older brothers, too. So it's hard to keep them quiet when it comes to spoilers like that. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing the re-releases in theaters in the 90s. And so that was probably the first time that I saw them in theaters, obviously. And then every new movie I watched in theaters since then. I do read a lot of the books, or at least I have. I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about their canon now as far as the movies and Disney and all that.
It's all canon now, essentially, right?
No, the novels, a lot of them are gone.
Okay, what about the graphic novels?
A lot of those are gone too. So since basically everything since Disney, well, everything before Disney bought it is no longer canon. I think there are still things that
The Clone Wars is the only exception to that.
Is it?
Because the cartoon, anything movie and cartoon is considered canon.
That's another point though. I've never seen any of the TV shows, so I haven't seen the Clone Wars and I haven't seen Rebels.
That's it.
That was it. Okay. Yeah. See, I don't even know. I haven't seen any of those though. And as far as Rogue One, the Clone Wars ties a little bit into that. At least one of the characters does, the Forrest Whitaker character. So I didn't know who that was. You see the ghost, spoiler, I guess. Well,
yeah, they've
been warned. They've been warned.
You see the ghost in Rogue One, and for me, that was nothing. But as far as the books go, yeah, I had been reading the books. I've read the Thrawn trilogy, which is awesome. I've read a lot of the Han Solo stuff. So I've known a lot about Star Wars.
Way more than I know. Like officially, that's
Okay. Yeah,
so. This is knowledge that I'm not even aware of. So I like to think of this as the more educated Rogue One review than if I were to just do it by myself. Right. Kelli hasn't seen it, and based on my thoughts, she won't be seeing it. We more or less have the same taste in movies. Mm-hmm. I was just learning more about midichlorians, and these guys probably knew more about it before I even started researching it. So that's kind of where a lot of this, I'm going to be asking more questions than anyone.
Well, the midichlorians are a topic that is so confusing and muddled that I don't think anybody really has any definitive answer on midichlorians.
And listeners have more or less also told me that they dismissed the idea, but
yeah,
that's not stopping my journey. I am now on Darth Plagueis with midichlorian manipulation is what it was. So your turn, Chris. Your experience with Star Wars, when you were first exposed to it, we'll start off there.
I've been around Star Wars forever. My father is a big sci-fi movie guy. Probably from the age of around 3, I started watching them. I can't say that I always knew that Vader was Luke's father, kind of a thing, because as a 3-year-old, you don't really think of that.
Right.
That's not really a big deal to you. You're just like, ooh, swords that light up and that kind of thing. But like Richard, I had watched the special editions in the theaters, and I was very excited for the prequel movies when they were first announced, and I will admit I saw them all at midnight showings, and I do feel like I wasted a little bit of my life because those days there weren't early like 7 o'clock shows.
Right.
They were all midnight, and if you didn't get there like first thing in the morning, you're gonna get like the worst seat and stare like in the very front row. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I wasted at least 3 days of my life for the prequel movies, which some of them have their merits. There is no saving episode 2. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say that now. There's no saving that movie.
So episode 2 is your least favorite of those 3?
It's the least favorite of anything Star Wars that I know of.
Yeah, I would agree.
And really, as far as the prequels go, the only reason that they get somewhat of a pass is the acting of Ewan McGregor saved that character. Because Obi-Wan is my favorite character.
Out of all the Star Wars?
Out of all the Star Wars.
Interesting.
As bad as some of the dialogue was, he's still, like, his acting ability still made it digestible, we'll say.
Yeah, I agree with that. Ewan McGregor was the best part of the trilogy, the prequel trilogy.
I liked Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson,
Liam Neeson was a badass.
That's true.
Liam Neeson's always a badass, though. He's a separate discussion altogether.
I don't know how Darth Maul defeated him, because if it would have been Liam Neeson, not Qui-Gon, Liam Neeson would have kicked his fucking ass.
Yes. That's not up for debate, but I mean, you have to depower characters like that. I mean, it's the stage presence. I mean,
I still don't know how Batman beat him in Batman Begins.
He got lucky. And actually, Batman doesn't really beat him. Batman runs away.
That's true. He doesn't save him. That's all he does. He just doesn't save him.
That is true. That's a good point.
So,
but yeah, Ewan McGregor, you said, was the best part of that whole trilogy.
Mm-hmm. As far as like video games and whatnot, I played a lot of the video games growing up. Things like Dark Forces and Rebel Assaults. The X-Wing and TIE Fighter games are really good. They don't hold up as well as they did back then. I read several of the books, like the Thrawn trilogy, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, some of the old stuff which isn't canon anymore. Still good stories, though.
That Splinter of the Mind's Eye book is very strange.
It is very strange.
It was written right after A New Hope came out, and before Empire, so they didn't know any of what was going to happen.
Essentially, no one cared back then if it fit or not with what was coming.
Yes.
Yeah. It didn't matter.
Leia gets force powers.
Yep.
And she Kamehameha's Vader
basically
into a hole or something. It was crazy. Yeah, it was very strange.
Why isn't that a movie?
Give it time. Disney will eventually dig down deep enough to where like, ooh, look at this.
We can sell this.
Yes. No, they'll do their Elseworld stories. I'm sure Disney is not going to shy away from that because it's going to make them money. So,
what's your favorite Star Wars video game? Since you've probably played more than Richard and I have combined.
I think overall, TIE Fighter is my most enjoyable Star Wars video game. I always liked flight sims, and I'm sad that they don't really make them anymore. But it was just a really solid game overall with the missions and everything, and being able to fly all the different TIEs.
Where does Star Wars Rogue Leader fit in your top 10 Star Wars games? Because that's my favorite. On the GameCube, Rogue Leader.
Oh, okay.
It looked gorgeous.
Was
and even now...
Rogue Squadron?
Rogue Squadron,
yes.
Rogue Squadron Rogue Leader, I think, was the full title of it.
Yeah.
And it was a launch GameCube game, and it still stands as one of the best-looking GameCube games from that whole library.
Yeah.
I never played that one.
I didn't own it. I had played it. Solid game, gameplay overall. I never really could get used to the controller for it for some reason.
On the GameCube?
Yeah. I think that was the one flaw that I had with it. It was a very pretty game. I mean, especially when it came out. Again, back then, I did not have a GameCube, so I played it at a buddy's house. And since being a single-player game, it was never... Yeah.
You just kind of sat and watched most of the time?
Yeah. So...
Yeah, I had Rogue Squadron for N64, and that one was awesome. And then I never played Rogue Leader, but... If it was anything like Rogue Squadron, then yeah, it was good.
So that gives listeners a good idea on the knowledge base for Star Wars. So real quick on Rogue One, it was directed by Gareth Edwards, who did 2014's Godzilla.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. I like Godzilla.
Seen it.
I'm not... Did you see it too?
Yeah, it was a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, I'm not on the camp of not enough Godzilla. I think it was perfect. It was fine.
Yeah.
The monsters, I guess, but that's out of his control. Debuted with $290 million worldwide, making it the second largest, I'm talking about Rogue One here, largest December opening of all time, falling just $100 million short of last year's Force Awakens. On top of that, Disney also held the number 2 spot this weekend with Moana.
Oh, okay.
So it's just Disney sucking up all of 2016's money, Civil War being the biggest opening this year, and that's another Disney movie.
Yeah, wow.
Rogue One currently holds an 84% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. What went wrong? What went wrong here?
Well, my thought on what went wrong here is
this is what went wrong with the movie, or what went wrong.
Well, it's the ironic thing here of it's so successful.
It's so successful, okay.
And
it's going to be successful just because it says Star Wars. I mean that's all you need to do, and people will go see it. I think it is less successful, and I think part of the reason why the 84% on Rotten Tomatoes is it's not the Star Wars that we have been exposed to for the last 40 years almost. It has one scene of lightsabers, and it's just a single lightsaber, and that's it. And most people are used to there being that mystic element of the Force and everything, and they mention the Force in there and whatnot, but it's not the same as it was in like A New Hope or in any other movie where there's a lot more of that.
But I don't think there was any indication that it was going to be like that. And in fact, it's not a numbered one, and it's just a Star Wars story. It takes place in that universe. I don't think there was any intention or any expectation of lightsabers or Force or anything like that.
Oh, I agree with that, but I think that people are still kind of expecting a little bit more of that because that's all they've ever been exposed to. I think that future Star Wars stories movies, like probably the Han Solo one coming up, and when they do the Boba Fett one, because I'm sure they will eventually do that, they will be a little more well received because they've been exposed to what is not part of the main Skywalker storyline.
So do you think that the people who watch this movie are people who have only watched the movies and like have not been exposed to other things in the Star Wars universe where the Force is not a thing.
Yeah.
Like we were just talking about Rogue Leader, which is not a Force-based Star Wars game. It's very much, just the
Space battles.
nitty-gritty space battles and that kind of thing. Do you think that those people who are watching the movie have played those games too and are aware of that side of the universe? Or do you think, no, you don't think
a
so?
majority of people that went to see these movies, it's just like a majority of people that went and saw the Marvel or DC movies. They haven't
never read a
necessarily
book.
read a lot of the trades or the comics, but people come in. Let's say I go in and see my movie or see the movie. I've got my little sister, I've got my brother, my parents, and my parents haven't read any of the graphic novels, but they still enjoy the movies.
Right.
So yeah, I think the general public hasn't been. I mean, look at me. I've read a couple of video games, haven't read the novels, and I went and saw Rogue One.
Right.
No, I think most people haven't gone and expanded it. It's only the dedicated, we'll say, fans will go and read the books and do more than that. It's because it's easier to just sit and spend 2 hours watching a movie than it is to pick up a novel
For sure.
and read it for a few hours.
So despite the fact that most people probably have only seen the movies and expectations of the Force and stuff, it did really well.
Right.
And got pretty good reviews.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say? Like, is that like a viable direction to take Star Wars in? I mean, apparently, right?
Well, I mean, if they're just looking to make money, yes. But again, like I said, put Star Wars in the title somewhere and people will go see it.
I see where you're going with this. You're trying to see if it's an indicator of what the future movies are going to be for Disney.
Yes.
If Rogue One had flopped, we probably wouldn't see more than the Han Solo or the Lando movie. We probably wouldn't have gotten a Boba Fett after that. But yeah, I think you're right in saying that this was sort of an experiment for the company to see if they could make a movie that doesn't just focus on the main Jedis for that trilogy.
Right.
Well, and they did play it a little safe, putting it where they did, where it leads directly into the original Star Wars movie, so that you have that tie-in. I think their bigger test is going to be with the Han Solo movie, because that is going... I don't see how, unless they end it where he shows up on like Tatooine or something, and he ends the movie in the bar.
Right. That's a good point, because everybody right now is still familiar with that time period.
Yes.
They know what the Death Star is. They know who Darth Vader is, that kind of thing. So it's a familiar territory.
Yes.
I think that was one of my issues with Rogue One, is that it tried too hard to fit into A New Hope, to the point where it was a little too much. I keep repeating the line of, "You better watch yourself."
Yes.
Because that was just like, come on, man.
So getting into the actual movie of Rogue One, that was exactly my biggest problem with it too. This movie was just one big eye roll. It was like, oh my god, again, another like
fan service.
Another fan service-y,
yeah.
Dr. Evazan, here's R2 and C-3PO and the temple. It was just like one after another. Here's all these things that, hey, remember this part or these characters? Hey, remember this character? Hey, remember this?
I don't have an issue with fan service, but it's when you treat your fans like they're morons.
Yes.
It could have been done much in a more subtle way than the way they did it.
They did do a lot of subtle things, and there were things that I didn't notice like the first time that were subtle fan service things, like tie-ins to the current Rebel cartoon shows. There was like 3 different spots that they had just little things that they didn't just kind of throw in your face, like the C-3PO and the Dr. Evazan thing. And can one of you explain how they got off that stupid planet before it explodes?
They must have been on their way to the spaceport.
Yeah.
And then right to Tatooine.
Because this movie is happening like days before you see them again on Tatooine.
Right,
That makes no sense.
Yeah. But, they had to throw it in there. Cause...
No, they didn't.
It's true, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
It actually served zero purpose.
That
other
Evazan point is tied for my least favorite moment of the movie.
He didn't even look good.
No, he did. He
looked awful. I know his face. It looked awful in the original movie, but I mean that's back in '77. Movie made in like 75, 76. So I mean, okay, I give that a little bit of a pass. But in today's world of makeup and whatnot, you couldn't have done a better job making him look it.
And is that line just something he says to everybody? It's like, you better watch yourself. And then like bumps to the next person, you better watch yourself. And like just like every person he runs into, you better watch yourself.
Get it, guys? Huh?
Right.
Could have turned to the screen and winked as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, another thing that with him that bothered me is he claims he's got the death sentence on 12 systems.
Right.
he's on one of the most heavily Imperial-controlled cities in the galaxy.
Yeah.
And nobody recognizes him and takes him away. I mean, this doesn't make much sense.
It's true. It's a good point.
I think the moment at which, and let me say that I predicted that this would be a better movie than Force Awakens because it was more standalone than the rest of them. It didn't have to rely on, well, next time you'll see who Kylo Ren is being trained by. You know, it had the chance of just being this complete standalone movie, which is always what I want out of the superhero movies, really any movie that's part of a larger plan is, can I watch it by itself? My favorite Marvel movie is the first Captain America. I don't have to be like, well, I got to find out what happens to Steve.
Right.
Like, we have our whole story here, and then later on, if you want, like, the future Steve, you can watch those movies, but it's a great standalone movie. Batman Begins. You don't have to watch Joker or The Dark Knight to understand more from Batman Begins. And that's what I thought Rogue One was going to be, and I was really, really rooting for it. Unfortunately, I was wrong about this one. I ended up liking Force Awakens more than Rogue One, and I did like Force Awakens. But the moment in which I went, okay, we're in for some trouble here, is when General Tarkin.
Yes.
As soon as he turns around, I'm like, oh fuck, they did it. Oh no,
Yeah.
here we go. What's going on? Like, they should have kept it like in episode 3 where you just see his side profile and then he turns around and you kind of see a little bit more of him.
I think it was done much better in episode 3, believe it or not.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, for some of his scenes, it was very convincing. But those were the scenes where he didn't move. Because if he's just standing there in the shot and he's just talking, it looks fine. But as soon as his character starts moving and they're moving that CGI face with him, it does not look fluid. And it's not really believable for his character. I did like his inclusion in there because he was a major part of it.
He was surprisingly a main character of that movie.
A little too much.
I think.
That was my problem. So my biggest problem with Tarkin, and I did have problems with him, was he upstaged Krennic like
Correct.
huge amount. And Krennic was an amazing bad guy if they would have just given him the chance. But as soon as you see Tarkin, you're like, whoa, Tarkin's here. And then he turns around and starts, talking down this Krennic guy. And it's sort of like, wait a minute, who's like the main bad guy here? I thought this Krennic guy was. And then throughout the movie, Vader does it to Krennic and Tarkin does it to Krennic some more. And it's just like, why are they taking this awesome character and just beating him down to the ground and like not making him as cool as his potential could be?
Well, I guess they were trying to make you root for him a little bit too, is that the Empire, Tarkin was taking some credit, right? Reporting straight to the Emperor for the program. Vader didn't choke him to death. We'll talk about that scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, this could have been a really cool villain for the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
And yeah, I feel including as much Tarkin as they did, as you said,
That was
definitely
the problem.
downplayed him.
They upstaged him with Tarkin. They just put Tarkin in it too much. If they would have just had him, like when you first see Tarkin, he's facing out the window, and you're like, whoa, Tarkin's in it. That's kind of cool. And I think he has a line or two. And then you see his reflection in the glass, and you're like, whoa, okay, they're showing his face. All right, what are they doing? Okay. And then he turns around and starts talking, and he's got like a whole 5-minute long scene with like fake CG and like all this stuff, and you're like, all right, what are they doing with Tarkin here? How important is he going to be? And it turns out he's got a big part in that movie.
No, they should have left him a little more in the background.
Yeah.
He should have stayed as basically the supervisor role of the Death Star.
I agree.
And then at the end, I suppose you can have him take over.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's also a worse shot with the Death Star. I mean, if you look at the scenes when they use the Death Star to blow up cities or whatnot, Tarkin misses.
Does he?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the very end?
At the very end, they hit
hits
the tower,
he hits the
but
satellite
he
dish on
misses the main part of the base.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Whereas Krennic,
They
gets the city.
They had to have Jyn and Cassian have a moment where they could see the death wave coming at them.
And the rest of the characters, they were dead by then. That's right. Yeah.
Well, because it was one. Oh, hey, look, here's another scene. Oh, he's gone too.
And then the next guy's dead, and then the next guy's dead. Do we want to get into that now?
Sure.
The systematic.
We're there.
The systematic killing of characters. At some point, they were just killing people just to kill people. It didn't make any sense, especially when they were going to blow up the city with a laser anyway. Why go through the trouble of showing them kill them?
I don't think that, from a storytelling perspective, I don't think the troops on the ground knew that they were going to all die.
Well, yeah.
But I also think that the worst part of that those death sequences was the trooper that decides to throw a grenade in the ship for no good reason.
Yeah,
There was no reason for that guy to do that, because there's already troops like right outside the ship and not getting shot at. So like, why would you blow up the ship?
At that point, did they know that Bodhi was a rebel? Because he was still wearing his Imperial stuff.
I don't think you could really tell, because there's other people in Imperial stuff at that
Okay,
point.
yeah, I
So,
wasn't sure. I just
I don't think that would have been a factor, but I thought that was just kind of random that there's like troopers running by, and then all of a sudden this one is just like, oh, I'm going to blow up the ship. Like,
how
why
many
would
of those
you blow up the ship?
How many of those rogues died from grenades? By the way, I feel like it was just like grenade toss death.
Oh man,
grenade
see
toss,
that's a
toss,
YouTube
death.
video now. I'm just gonna have to.
It's a game of Call of Duty. Is that what that?
Yeah.
Speaking of their deaths, you nailed it perfectly on why Rogue One didn't work where it should have. Is you said no one really cared that these guys died. The movie didn't set up these characters well enough to where you actually were like, oh, okay, these guys are heroes. Like, I really like all of them, especially that robot.
Well, the K2 was I think the only likable character, but no, they did a bad job developing the characters at all to the point where you can relate to them in any way and care about them in any way. Like, when the movie was over, there was never a character that I'm just kind of like, oh, why'd he have to go? Or it's sad that character died. I was just like, I don't care. And it wasn't just because I figured that they were all going to die because of the story that they were doing, but it's just they never really made me care. Like, I cared more about Jin's father dying, I think, than herself.
No,
so
I'll have to disagree with you a little bit there. I actually liked the characters a little bit more than I thought I was going to. So going into the movie, from the trailer, I know I've told you guys this, there was the scene where Jin says, "I'm a rebel, I rebel." And I thought that was one of the worst lines ever. And thankfully they cut it from the movie. They actually cut a lot of stuff from the trailers from the movie. But they cut that from the movie. So that was one of the lines that made me dislike Jin. But I actually liked her a lot more. And I liked a lot of the characters too. I thought a lot of them were underused, or like Donnie Yen's character, Chirrut. He has one scene where he's fighting guys with his staff, and then the rest of the movie he's just sort of like standing in the background, rocking on his staff, saying, "I'm one with the Force is with me." And that's like all he did the whole movie, basically. The Bodhi guy I actually liked a lot more than I thought I would, but I didn't understand his mind suck thing. And then he
how is he sane?
All Cassian needed to do was remind him that he was a pilot, and all of a sudden he's
snapped
fine
right back
again.
to it.
Yeah, that was strange, but I did like Bodhi more than I thought I would. K2 was funny, although some points I was like, man, he's kind of annoying, which I guess was supposed to be his point.
Yeah.
I think they from playing some of the games, he reminded me a little bit of the bounty hunter droid in Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh yeah, I don't remember his
he
name.
had a little bit of that. I don't remember his name
The
either.
snark, a little bit of snark to him. Yeah.
Calling everybody meat bags and whatnot.
Back to the characters though, Cassian was probably my favorite of them all. He was sort of a surprise, because he wasn't featured in the trailers too much, I don't think. But I thought he was pretty good. I liked him as a character.
He's the one that died with Jin at the very end, right?
Yeah, he's like the main Rogue One leader guy.
He was okay, and I think that they did a good job with him showcasing that the rebellion isn't all good. That you have those shades of gray in there.
That scene at the beginning.
The scene in the beginning.
In the alley where he just murks that guy in the back.
I think as far as the characters that they introduced, he probably had the most, I guess, character growth in the movie, as opposed to everybody else. But still, I think it was lacking a little bit. It might have just been the sheer amount of characters that they had, because it is hard to do that kind of thing. Not that this is the same kind of movie, but The Hobbit, there's 13 dwarves in that movie that I don't think that they did a good job on those characters either.
Sleepy, drowsy.
Yes, exactly. But no, it's. I think when you have too many main characters, it's hard to, I think, get everybody get their stories in there.
Yeah.
In like a 2-hour period of time, and I think that's where they fell in this. Where if they cut the group a little bit and maybe just had it Jin, Cassian, Chirrut, and Baze, I think is his name.
Baze,
his buddy. If it was like just those four, and then like just the random troopers that went with them, they might have done a better. Might have been a little more successful as far as familiarizing yourself with the characters and caring a little bit about them.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you expand beyond like 3 or 4 main characters, I think they kind of get lost.
That's a good point.
I think the structure of the movie, too, there wasn't, as opposed to the other Star Wars movies, there were very few shots that I can recall where I'm like, that's kind of iconic. That was really well done. And I think that's a shortcoming of Gareth Edwards, in which I wanted this to have some of the better establishing shots that we've seen in the Star Wars movies. And this one was, for the most part, more forgettable in the setups, in the... even some of the sets. Like, there's very few portions of that I can recall and think that was... one of my favorite. I want to play that in a video game. I want to read more about that.
Well, I can give him credit. I don't know if it's him per se or if it's somebody else, but the introduction of more planets, I think, was a nice thing. I wish they didn't put the stupid little subtitle saying what planet this is every time that you went to a new planet.
I think the only one they didn't was Mustafar.
Well, they didn't do that one, and did they do the first one, like where Jin and her family are hiding out?
I don't know. They may have.
I don't know if they did that one or not. I don't remember. But like every other one, like Skaro and Jeddah, they keep saying Scarif, whatever. But they keep saying these planets' names like over and over again, and then they're going there, and then they label the planet. I'm just kind of like, we know what this is already. Like, give your audience a little credit.
But no, they have to keep showing you more winks and nods at episode 4. We're not going to give them that much credit. Come on.
I guess, but I mean, like even in like Empire Strikes Back, where it's like you don't know what this ice planet is that they're on in the beginning.
But they tell you in the movie.
They do tell you in the movie.
It's context,
but it's a subtle thing though in the movie, and I think that works better for Star Wars.
Yeah.
For like Star Trek, fine, whatever. Because they're going all over the place. But Star Wars is a little different.
I don't even think they labeled the planets like on screen with subtitles in the prequel trilogy.
No.
That was a new thing.
I'd have to go back and watch it. Yeah, I'm not too sure.
No, because they made a point, like in the prequel ones, to tell you where they're going. Mm-hmm. Like in episode 1, they just show up to Naboo, but then they mention Naboo while they're there. Right. And then when they're going to Tatooine, they're just like, okay, we're going to go to Tatooine.
That little droid did it.
And then when you go to Coruscant, the stupid pilot's telling Anakin, "Oh, we're going here. It's just one big city." And so they made it so you knew where you're going without having to label it.
The labels probably take you out of the experience a little bit when you see that on screen.
I agree with that.
Let's talk about the icing of the movie, and I think the part that everyone, that at least I've talked to, that said, I loved Rogue One. That Vader scene was great. Let's talk about Darth Vader.
All right, so I had said before, I'd alluded to my 2 least favorite moments of the movie. The first one being the Dr. Evazan. The second one being the first time you see Vader.
Cut it out. Just cut that scene.
I don't understand why they made Vader so dumb. Like, so stupid. Like, not intelligence-wise. Just, like, I watched him... All right, so from the trailer, you see that scene where he comes out of the fog and he's, like, coming out really quick.
It's like E.T. or something, yeah.
And it was like, oh my god, this is a legitimate, scary moment with Vader. And that's all you see in the trailer. So then when you get to the movie and you see that scene, and he has that line. That line. Don't choke on your ambitions, or whatever it is.
You said it.
He's literally choking him.
As he's literally choking him. That was, with Evazan, the worst parts of that movie. I could not believe it. I booed in the theater when I saw that.
If they cut that out, like if they had just put like the Vader in the Bacta tank scene in where they're just, when Tarkin's like, Vader will deal with the fleet or whatever, and then just like have that before that like scene, basically as you're calling in Vader, that would have been fine, and then have him show up and just slice everybody up.
Right.
That would have been just enough Vader. And the end scene was Vader. That middle scene that you hate so very much, that I think everyone should hate, was not Vader.
Yeah, so you had brought up this, oh my god, Vader is so cool. That last scene was cool. I did very much like that last scene with Vader.
And that makes me curious, because the first cut of the movie, Disney execs said, where's Vader? There's not enough Vader in this movie. And they had to go back and add, they said another scene. And I'm curious as to whether or not it was that good scene at the very end that connected it to episode 4. Or if it was that scene with him interacting, force choking.
Krennic?
Yes.
Yeah.
We will probably never know on that.
I don't know. Maybe we'll have a director's cut or something later on.
I would like, though, and this is a little off topic, I'm sorry, but just on topic of Vader, I would like them to make a separate movie that's based on just the Jedi Purge. I think that people would go nuts over Vader just kind of going and hunting Jedi. And that would be a really difficult story for them to tell from, like, because almost every movie is a good guy perspective looking at the bad guys.
Right.
But I think that would make for a interesting story overall. And
Well, we are going to have that Boba Fett movie, so we'll see how that'll be another test movie. We'll see how the market reacts to a bad guy movie, and then maybe if that does well, we'll see a Vader movie.
Yeah, it won't do well. I'm sorry.
You don't think so?
I like the way Boba Fett looks like everybody else, but once the reason why everyone likes Boba Fett is because there's mystery around him. You don't know about him. It's like Wolverine. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like people like the character because there's mystery around that character. Once you know that history and everything, you don't care as much.
Or like Trader in Force Awakens. Everyone latched on to Trader.
That whatever his name, FN whatever, with the stupid shock stick.
TR8ER.
Yeah, you learn a little bit of his history in like some of the expanded books and whatnot. But yeah, like if you knew more about that character, you're just not going to care.
So you don't think a Fett movie would work?
I don't. I think a Fett movie would hurt the character.
Would it make money though? That's the bottom line here.
Okay,
you're in the Disney chair. Do you
if
make
I'm
a
in the
Boba
Disney
Fett
chair,
movie?
I make a Boba Fett movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
You'd make
Because
3 of them.
Sadly, yes, and but again, people in the Disney chair are just like $1 billion, right there,
Printing money, basically.
Yeah. I mean that's what they're doing now. I mean they're right now laughing at George Lucas at $4 billion. We got you.
Right?
So yeah, they would make just all the money. And I think I would probably be the one person that wouldn't go see them. So
Really?
and it's sad to say.
I'd still see them. I'm still going to go see them.
I would still probably see the first one, but then once that first one was the disappointment that I'm expecting it to be,
But you went
I probably wouldn't see
you
the
went saw
others.
episode 2 and episode 3.
Back then, everyone pretended they were good though.
That was
true.
different because yes, go back and watch like the videos of people being interviewed leaving the theater. Like,
So-
I don't know. Go ahead.
So that brings up, that's a good segue into the future of Rogue One. Is Rogue One, or are people's, opinions of Rogue One going to change the same way that they changed for The Phantom Menace?
I say yes in a similar way, but not to the level that Phantom Menace is viewed at now.
People hate The Phantom Menace now.
They do now, and I don't think they'll ever admit to hating Rogue One because, to be honest, it wasn't.
it's not a bad.
It's
movie.
not as bad as Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Would you say it's less exciting than Phantom Menace? Because Phantom Menace had that amazing lightsaber scene at the end that I will still say is a great scene.
And the Duel of the Fates kicks in, and Darth Maul's standing there with this dual lightsaber, that was awesome.
No, that was a good part of that movie. Yes, they just ruined it with the half-assed space battle that they did in between the scenes, where it's just like no, just go back to the lightsabers.
Yeah.
Get away from random farm boy kid who's better than every pilot on this planet. I'm just like, are you kidding?
Do you know his midichlorian count? Yes, of course he's better than the rest
I'm well
of them.
aware of his midichlorian count. Thank you, Daniel. We've had discussions.
That's why he's kicking ass up there.
Yeah, it's true.
Force is with him. Only with him.
Yes.
It's not with Qui-Gon.
Apparently.
Yes. See, actually, we're gonna find out that's the secret of Darth Vader. He sucks up everyone else's midichlorians. So that's why Qui-Gon lost.
Do you want to see any more? You're talking about the future of the Star Wars movies. Do you want to see any more Vader? I know you had mentioned you want to see the slaying of the Jedis, purging of the Jedis, or should they leave it as is, where it is now, where it's like, okay, we got a taste of Vader. We saw how he kicked ass leading up to Episode 4.
What do I want, or what do I think?
What do you want?
What do I want? I think it's fine how it is. I mean, the next thing is A New Hope, and unless they make movies in between A New Hope and Empire, and in between Empire and Jedi.
So no Vader in Han Solo, no Vader in the Lando movie, no Vader in the Boba Fett movie?
Well, he shouldn't show up in the Han Solo movie. I could see him showing up in a Boba Fett movie, but I don't think they're going to touch on anything between A New Hope and Empire, because that's what the comics are currently dealing with, that Marvel's doing. I think that if they're going to do Darth Vader, they need to do it in the height of Darth Vader, which is between Episode 3 and now Rogue One, where this is the baddest Vader that you are going to get. Everything else is just kind of meh.
I agree. I hope that I kind of hope that they don't do too much Vader, like a Vader movie or something like that. But I think they will, because that was like you said earlier, the thing, oh my god, Vader in that scene.
That's what people attach to.
That's what people attach to. That's what people are still talking about. I think Disney knows that, and they'll do something about it.
Yeah.
Wrapping up, where does Rogue One sit on your 8 movies of Star Wars, unless you want to count the animated ones?
Which I haven't seen, so.
As far as I'm concerned, it does not beat any of the original trilogy. It's probably number 5 on my list, just below
Awakens.
Force Awakens. And it's close, because I like Force Awakens for some reasons, and I like Rogue One for some reasons, but I dislike them both for other things. So they're right there.
I had a different opinion of Force Awakens. I loved Force Awakens. I think Force Awakens is probably maybe tied for second for me. I love Empires is number 1, A New Hope, and then Force Awakens, or tied.
With Jedi?
No, with The New Hope.
Oh, okay.
And then
I got
Jedi.
you.
And then I think I still like Phantom Menace. That's like a unpopular opinion for the prequel trilogy. I think most people like Revenge of the Sith the best of the 3.
No.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I like the Phantom Menace the best of the 3. I still think that it has some good qualities, and I think I might put Rogue One below Phantom Menace, or maybe tied with Phantom Menace. It was still pretty low. And then Revenge of the Sith, and then Attack of the Clones.
So what it sounds like here is that the prequels are still lumped into their own ranking. They still end up sitting next to each other.
There is a lot wrong with the prequels, and it usually comes down to you just saying George Lucas.
Oh, I say Hayden Christensen.
Well, he was a bad part of that. Like, he is not a good actor. He's not. And the writing in those movies was not good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not.
Not as good as choking on your...
Oh my God. you know, choking on your ambition line is better than the...
I'm a person. My name is Anakin.
Stuff like that, yes. And like Panda Bear's line to Anakin on, you're going down a path I can't follow. It's like, oh, come on. That kind of stuff takes you out of the movie, I think. And that's why like the prequels have such a bad rap, is there's too much of that bad writing in there.
So, sort of back to the beginning, why do people love Rogue One as much as they do? Newsarama, I saw an article on Newsarama, the best Star Wars movie ever, and they ranked it above every other Star Wars movie.
I think it's the excitement of what's to come with the rest of the trilogy as well. The fact that it feels like a new beginning now that it's under a new company. So there's a lot of expectation on Star Wars. So because they want to see so much from the franchise, they want to like these movies more than probably any one of us 3 did.
I can see that. I don't know. I think you're going to find that people found something different in this movie than we did. Like, we were probably looking for something else, and we didn't get it, and so that's why we were a little let down, or more let down than others for some of us in this room.
I gotta say that seeing the trailers and stuff, I also was not thrilled about the movie to begin going in. Trailers for Force Awakens, I was really hyped for it, and for me it paid off. I really loved Force Awakens. This one, I was not into the trailer, and I just didn't care for the movie either. Do you think most people liked the trailer? Do you think most people didn't? Do you think that had any effect on...
I don't think the trailers really had anything going for them. Especially when you look at like YouTube views, I know it doesn't mean a ton, but Rogue One's trailer views didn't get nearly as much excitement as like Force Awakens did.
Right.
I think again, people were a little concerned going into this movie because they didn't know anybody in this movie. And I mean, with the exception
they knew a lot of
Vader.
people in that movie. They knew Tarkin. They knew
they knew when you
C-3PO
actually go and see it, but because again, the fan service that they threw in there.
Right.
But yes, like just looking at the trailers, though, there isn't that known factor other than Star Wars.
Okay.
Last thing, because I forgot to ask when we were talking about General Tarkin, am I the only one that feels like it was terrible to include a dead actor in a movie as a full CG, full character, fledged out? It's like sinful almost. The guy's dead.
I think it goes to the point of what we were saying before. I think there was just too much of him. I don't think it is necessarily like sinful to have him in the movie. Like Revenge of the Sith.
That should be a film crime. Like, we should make a law that says you should not make a computerized video game version of a dead person.
Well, that's never going to happen, because I guarantee you that whoever owns the Peter Cushing estate is making money off of that. And the problem I have with that, though, is actually nothing to do with Star Wars. I'm more concerned that they're going to basically get rid of any future actors and potential, like, really good actors to replace them with CG versions of actors that we've known for years.
Replace them with voice actors.
Well, basically, I think that's where Hollywood's going, because as technology improves, because Tarkin was pretty impressive for the most part, but for the most part. But I mean, as technology improves, it's going to get to the point where it's going to be hard to tell the difference between CG and real. And then at what point do you just say, okay, I can pay this guy to stand in a room and record his voice for the half of what it would cost to pay this guy to actually do it?
It's sort of, I was thinking recently about video games too. We're getting to a point now where we're having actors cast as roles in video games. Like there's a new Kojima game coming out that has like Guillermo del Toro in it and Mads Mikkelsen in it. And so then we're going to start seeing, Call of Duty starring Mads Mikkelsen or whatever. It's going to be like a movie poster for video games.
Yeah, we're getting there already.
We're getting a lot of those.
And it's sort of like the same thing with movies, or like the opposite with movies, just going to CG.
Or Kevin Spacey in Call of Duty, where it is literally Kevin Spacey.
Right.
And he just voiced himself, and he's playing himself. Right. So we're definitely there, I think, already, as you were saying. But yeah, I think that essentially wraps up our thoughts on Rogue One. I do want to thank both Richard and Chris for coming on and helping with the Rogue One review, because again, I would still be calling him Tarkir in my review.
You still will.
And I still will, because now I know it's a trolling thing.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, it was fun.
So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in and listening. Actually, do you guys want to plug in your Twitter handles real quick in case the listeners want to connect with you?
Sure, yeah. My Twitter is @WingsOfCapicola.
Can you spell Captain Cola?
It's CAPIL Capic.
He doesn't know.
CIPICOLA.
He's new to Twitter, folks, so you got to forgive him.
I'm new to spelling, apparently.
And I'm at OmniPrime. It's just OMNIPRIME. So pretty simple.
Awesome. So follow them, and of course, let us know what you thought of Rogue One on @ReasonsI'mBroke and Facebook.com/TheReasonsI'mBroke. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
See ya.